Hey everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of 90's horror films. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and I'm here with my special guest who is here, I think, for the first episode of this season. Please welcome Vittorio Treppo. How you doing, Vittorio?
Good. How are you doing, John?
Good, good. So this was actually Vittorio's suggestion originally. We were talking about different 90's horror films, and I mentioned I mentioned sort of, I thought about doing like one of the Freddy movies because there's two of them in the 90's. There's this and Freddy's Dead. And you said if I did, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, you wanted to be on. And so I said, sure, and I thought about it and I decided this was the time to do it. Um, so it was an interesting movie because of the fact that uh Freddy was dead.
Hmm.
They killed him off and Freddy's dead, the final nightmare. I don't think they were even really, even though this was only like 3 years after, I think this is 94 if I'm correct.
Yep.
And which was 10 years after the original. So it seemed fair that 10 years later they'd have to do a sequel as an anniversary. Um, and so they did this, and this was basically the most meta movie you'll ever see in your life, I feel like
One
I
of
don't
them.
know,
Yeah.
one of the most meta movies, right? Like, what'd you think of that?
Definitely. You have to excuse me. I'm eating my dinner here. Um, Definitely one of the most meta movies.
Yeah, so the movie basically is a movie within a movie within a movie kind of thing. And it starts out, inside a movie set, or whatever. I guess they're getting ready for a new Nightmare or whatever it's gonna be. It's gonna be a new Freddy movie. And they're
Yep.
just getting the glove ready, and the glove takes on a form of its own, you know. Which I think it would have been interesting if the glove was the killer the whole time, you know,
Uh-huh.
and you never saw Freddy. I mean, that kind of would have been cool. But then again, I think people would have flipped their shit if they never got to see Freddy because sort of Freddy is Nightmare, like he is what has made the movie the success. Now, are you a Freddy fan?
Um, Not really a fan per se. I mean, I enjoy the movies, but I'm not, one of those like they have that whole scene in the movie where Heather Langenkamp goes on the talk show, and then all of a sudden England shows up and everyone is just like Freddie, Freddie, Freddie.
It almost felt like Jerry Springer kind of thing. Jerry,
Yeah, it's like
Jerry.
Jerry, Jerry.
Oh, was that pre? That wasn't pre Jerry Springer. That had to be like the in joke or something with that.
No,
Um,
I actually think that might have been during Jerry because I remember that was I think his talk show started in like 98 in like 88.
that would make sense. So yeah, so Freddy, and everybody's going crazy. People are saying Freddy lives, which could have been
Yep.
a cool title for a new Freddy movie if they had just wanted to bring it back, again.
Yeah.
I like the title New Nightmare though, because it fit with the whole film, you know, as a whole. Um, so basically we start off it's a dream and everything. And it turns out that the dream it was a dream of them being on set or whatever. And
Mhm.
are the dreams coming true? What's going on? That kind of thing. And I'm fascinated by movies like that, because I'm sort of I want to do more and more research on dreams
Uh-huh.
because I'm always having these weird ass fucking dreams, and people are like, put them in a movie. And that's what Wes Craven does or did, for
Mhm.
a long time is he would that's sort of how a little bit of how Nightmare on Elm Street began, is one of his nightmares, and then
Yep.
more stuff like that. Um, so it was really cool. Heather Langenkamp is being the actress, not is playing herself, and she's being harassed by someone, saying, Freddy's coming for you and all this stuff, and they think it's a fan, but we never know. Do you think that was Freddy for real, or do you
Yeah,
think that was a fan?
you never find out that who's making those phone calls.
Right? You never find that out, and I think I like that. Originally I was like thinking, is that sort of a dick move, but like sort of cool, like it's makes you think, it makes you wonder, you know? I bet there are some people that think, oh man, there was somebody and it wasn't Freddie because she wasn't always asleep, right? You know?
Yep.
But maybe it was Freddie. Maybe Freddie can sort of get, kind of come and go because she's not getting much sleep.
Another
And
thing, I think we're going to be bouncing around a bit here, but something else that I was noticing about that movie is the way the whole living room was set up is so much. You see so much of that in Scream.
yeah.
I mean, just the way that, and there was like the whole phone call thing, which was
Yeah,
kind of.
pre-Scream, but like, yeah,
I mean,
it's
he did Scream right after this though, didn't he?
not right after, a couple years after, but he was because I think he did this and he did Vampire in Brooklyn around the same time, which is another movie I want to do, but I'm not going to do two Wes Craven movies in the same season, you know.
Mhm.
But Vampire in Brooklyn was a flop, it was one of the biggest flops, and it was sort
Yeah.
of at that time where people were like thinking that, horror was dead, you know, and that
Yeah.
people weren't. And here's the thing. Movies today, if you've seen enough horror films, you're not going to be scared, you know,
Mhm.
right? Like I don't get scared anymore, you know. There's only been one movie of recent times that kind of freaked me out a little bit, and that was The Babadook. And it's just because
Yeah.
that shit gets stuck in your head a little bit, or whatever. And I like that. Like I like movies like that. They kind of get stuck in your head and kind of fuck with
Yeah.
your brain. This movie, I mean, it was a Freddy movie, like without really, really being one, but like it was like if Freddy was this entity that, was all of a sudden, comes alive, you know, because I guess I don't know. I don't know if it's because the dreams are causing it or whatnot. But he kind of explains it a little bit, but it's still got very confused by Wes Craven's explanation when he's talking to Heather.
Yeah.
He explains it's some kind of entity that sort of got trapped or whatever. It is now,
In the movies.
yeah, now he's trying to make his way out of into reality and or something. But I'm just like, I kind of wish there was a little bit more explanation. Yeah.
I think he just don't I think he wants to have it more open ended.
Yeah. Um, just like the phone calls. I mean, you can't explain everything, otherwise people get really mad about that too. They hate when it's like over exposition or something, you know.
Yeah.
But if it kind of leaves you up to like wondering what is going on here, that's kind of cool, in my opinion. But yeah, so we see, and what I do like is they brought back the first movie, and so what I think Wes Craven wanted to do was, from what I read in a trivia, he watched all sort of the six movies, back to back before writing this one, and
Hmm.
he sort of saw how the storylines kind of got skewered a little bit and stuff, and it just got kind of messed up. There wasn't like one direction for the whole story, not like Marvel where they're trying to, interconnect everything. That's what they probably do if they brought back Freddy today. They would try to make it some kind of uh legendary horror cinematic universe, have Freddy, Jason. Ah, by the way, I am drinking tea in my Jason cup.
Yay.
Well, I'm a bigger Jason fan than I am a Freddy fan, to be honest.
Um, Kind of going back and forth. I remember really liking this movie when it first came out, and it's not bad, but it's not. I don't know. It's not quite as quite like the others. Um, but surprisingly, it doesn't have as
Well,
many kills.
do you mean about like the fact that he doesn't use the snarky kind of like one-liners and stuff or something? Like the humor's not there?
It's definitely a more darker in tone.
Oh, well, um, I think that was that harkened back to like the first one, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
and
which
there's
I,
also
oh, go ahead.
there also doesn't seem to be a lot of as many kills in this one.
No, and a couple of them are off screen. You don't see them really
Yeah.
because like remember the two guys, they didn't die. Um, you didn't see them on camera dying. You heard later on. The two people who worked on the project, or whatever, was
Mhm.
murdered, and I'm like, that's weird. Like, why didn't we at least see that? I guess because it wanted to be a surprise to the audience and to her that they were dead. But I already thought they were dead. They didn't even need to have that line because uh there was that scene where she's talking to the boyfriend or husband, sorry, husband on the
Yeah.
phone, and she's like, "Did did so and so and so and so you know come to the come to work today, right?" And it was
Hmm.
because they died, you know, and stuff. I thought, but then it said they died like a day later. I don't know. It was weird, or a few days later, because or
You know what's
so
weird? Now that you mention it, they never actually mentioned in the movie what happened to the glove.
at the end.
Well, because they had mentioned that the people those guys had been killed, but you never like find the glove. There's never.
Yeah, well, I mean, the glove was always sort of like supernatural. You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
like there's a scene with the was it the a husband driving down the road, right? And he's driving, he's kind of falling asleep or whatever, and you keep seeing the glove come up and
Hmm.
kind of, you know, kind of touch his crotch or whatever at one point, and
Yeah.
then it disappears, and then he, kind of disappears into the dream thing again, and it comes up and kills him. And yeah, but you see the marks and stuff, but you never see the glove. And I kind of like that. I didn't mind that.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah, I like this, the glove being supernatural. And I did love seeing Freddy, but apparently Freddy looked different, kind of looked more menacing, honestly.
Hmm.
Um, didn't look nearly as bad as he did in the remake. Remake was awful. I don't know if you ever saw that one. The Nightmare on Elm Street remake, the I think 2009
I don't remember that.
or 2000, was it later? Might have been later. It might, but it was terrible. His the Freddy makeup looked like the Grinch. So I kept always making a joke saying the Grinch stole Freddy.
Huh.
But no, it looked awful. Like, um, and that's the problem with today's makeup in a way, is you gotta go back to the basics. If you're gonna create Freddy, make him look like Freddy, you know? I mean,
Hmm.
we gotta, I mean, this Freddy right here looked a little different, but and I've got a picture of Freddy and the babysitter, um, who surprisingly and weirdly enough was like way more like, I don't know, she was a babysitter, right? Like, or
Hmm.
whatever, you know. So she was like a little bit more over, like I've never seen a babysitter on anything or even in real life that would be so dedicated to their kid that they would go down to the hospital and shit, you know? I,
Yeah.
I like, or especially, well, I mean, she had a dream that he was there, which is even weirder, that it was evading her dreams too. It was evading everyone's. And I think it's because of the script, you know? Like we see the script at the end of the movie and she's reading some of it and it's pretty much the whole movie, right?
Hmm.
And so it's almost like you ever seen that movie Adaptation
Yeah.
where Charlie Kaufman, if people hadn't seen it, Charlie Kaufman is a writer. In real life, he's a writer. He did Being John Malkovich and tons of other Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, tons of stuff. And he wrote a movie which was supposed to be an adaptation of a book about orchids. And he, I guess, couldn't figure out how to make it into uh, into a movie. So he just makes a movie about putting himself into his own script and stuff. And I just thought that was sort of, maybe they got their idea from this movie a little bit. Maybe Charlie Kaufman was watching Wes Craven's New Nightmare and was like, hmm,
Yeah.
maybe I can put myself into my own story or whatever, like Wes Craven did. I mean, it had to be a little weird to write a scene where Wes Craven is talking to Heather Langenkamp, about
Yeah.
this stuff, and then all of us, you know what I mean? Like, have that, I would have loved to be there when he pitched the idea to
And and it was before its time too. I mean, meta is kind of all over the place now,
It's
but
overblown now, mainly because of Marvel and stuff. I feel like
but
the
it's
metaverse or
it's
whatever.
so it's such a back then it was new.
Yeah, and what is it? Not just that, but yeah, Deadpool is very meta. Um, yeah, but back then it was sort of new. I was looking it up, and you think about even the French movies Day for Night is very meta, and stuff like that. So they've been doing it, but you know, what I've always heard is every time I say I want to do a movie about making a movie, you know, people tell me
Hmm.
no, Hollywood does not want that, you know, right?
Yeah.
And I want to be like, Hollywood wants to look at fucking Wes Craven's New Nightmare,
Yeah.
it would just depend on how it's done, but I think it's a good idea sometimes to kind of poke fun at Hollywood a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
So to go back, I did really like that scene with Robert Englund coming in as Freddy for the first time. You kind of see him dressed up and
Yeah.
he's making jokes and cracking jokes at everything, right?
He
Uh,
really doesn't. He's really not in this movie as much. I don't think he shows up until like 50 minutes in.
he doesn't show up till like 15 minutes in, and then he he as because that is Robert Englund as the new Freddy, right?
Yeah.
It's not like
Mhm.
somebody else taking over for Freddy or anything. So Robert Englund did go back, but it was really funny because you see Robert Englund and his normal makeup, normal thing. He gets to act, in a way, like not be Freddy, in a Freddy
Yeah.
movie, See, as well, I think he might have done that in another movie too. Like I want to say it was Freddy's Dead. He got to play another role or something,
Yeah.
But I think it was related to Freddy. Like I think Freddy was, you know, doing that. But anyway, he was getting to play himself, and I absolutely adored him in this. Like I thought him as just playing himself was so good. You know,
Yeah.
um, what was your favorite scene in this movie? I'll tell you mine.
Um, I'm gonna have to think about that.
I'll tell you
Okay,
mine and then you can
go ahead.
while
Go
you're
ahead.
thinking. But my scene has got to be the scene the running across the freeway scene and stuff. That scene was so crazy. The little kid, Dylan, played by Miko Hughes, who if I don't know if you knew this or not, but that was Gage from Pet Cemetery.
Okay.
So he's the little boy from Pet Cemetery who got hit by a truck. So it's kind of funny that he's playing a character who's running across the freeway, almost getting hit by trucks. You know, they must have gave him like deja vu a little bit. I wish
Yeah.
he was at Scares That Care. I wish I had like really watched this again and asked him questions or something, pick
Yeah.
his
It would have
brain.
been nice.
I think I might be seeing him in April. I'm not sure. Because one of my friends is going to there's a convention up in like Maryland, It's like a comic convention. So he's
Okay.
gonna be there. So it'd be cool to meet him like I met him, but it'd be cool to like maybe hang out and get dinner with him or something.
Yeah.
That would be a dream right there because he seems like a really cool dude. But yeah, him running across and then Heather Langenkamp having to run across and everything. Oh man, that must have been a bitch to shoot, honestly, because they have to, get all those cars to like do exactly right. They have to get the stunt people in, and I mean that was pretty well done, you know.
Yeah.
You've never had to dodge people walking around, in a freeway, have you?
Nope.
It's good. Good. I hope that never happens.
Yeah.
But all right, what's your favorite scene? Did you think of it?
Um, kind of like some of the scenes where not really. I don't know if it's not really Freddy, but like some of the scenes where Nancy's kind of starting to lose it, like the cemetery. I mean, there is the little thing in Freddy there, but also, when she goes into Robert Shea's and office and she starts to notice that things are starting to not add up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, we got to see Robert Shea play Robert Shea. That was pretty cool. And then we
Yeah.
got to see his freaking sister again play a nurse, Lynn Shay, you know,
Yep.
who was a teacher in the first Nightmare on Elm Street. So it was really cool to see her back. But everybody really knows her from the Insidious movies now, you know. That's her bread and butter. And she's super sweet. I've interviewed her a long time ago. She's super sweet. Love her to death. Um, but yeah, so let's see. Yeah, I like the funeral scene. Just because like once again, it goes to the first movie where you didn't know what was real and what wasn't, just like the people, you know?
And also the last half of this movie I watched with the audio commentary on, and
Okay.
Wes was talking about it, and he made a point that like how he has John Saxon going in and out of his costume from the first movie. It's
Right.
like you see him like walking down the road and he's in his regular clothes, and then you just cut back to him in just a split second later, and he's he's dressed like
The cop.
the cop.
Yeah, which was great. I love that scene because I love that line in the movie where she's like, why are you calling me Nancy, John? And he's like, why are you calling me John, Nancy? Like, like it's just such
Yeah.
a great sort of like moment of like, oh shit. And then there's that big reveal that she turns around and sees the whole the house from the movie, you
Yep.
know? And I've been there. I was when I was living in LA, uh I got to hang out with my buddy Vincent Pereira, and Vincent was just visiting and stuff, and was staying at a hotel on Sunset. And I went over. He had said that the place on Sunset was in walking distance of both. the Halloween houses that are down the street from there, and
Hmm.
the Nightmare on Elm Street houses. So Haddonfield is right next to Elm Street, like right
Yeah.
across the street, from Sunset. So you walk across Sunset, you can go to either place, which I think is pretty
Well,
neat.
wasn't Springfield is supposed to be in take in Illinois, right?
Right.
Okay, and Haddonfield was in Illinois.
Oh, there's a connection right there. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, what really happened was like I think if I'm correct, John Carpenter uh and Wes Craven were friends.
Hmm.
And that was the time period where horror filmmakers like were connected to each other, like they all sort of knew each other. And I think, the locate like when they location scouted for one, they were able to find the other one, you know.
Yeah.
They were able to find the house for Elm Street. But it was really neat, like just walking down Elm Street, you know? Like, well, it wasn't Elm Street. I forgot what the actual street's called. But walking down the street and then seeing, and just it looked like what you would imagine Elm Street to look like lots of uh,
Yeah.
you know, was it trees, and it was just a pretty cool looking place. But it was neat to go down there and actually see it, and then it was, what is it? Nancy's house is actually across the street from Glenn's house, like it's supposed to be in the movie. It
Hmm.
actually is, which is neat because most of the time that's just movie magic. Like they're probably usually not even in the same, neighborhood, but
Yeah.
in this case they are literally right across the street from each other, so it's pretty cool. Um, but to go back to this movie, you actually see the house again, and she goes inside, and it's really her house, back to her house, which was just pretty cool though. It was like, I bet if I had been a huge Freddy fan and was older, when that movie came out and saw it in the
Yeah.
theater, I would have gone nuts, you know? Those are the kind of things where people just go, yeah, you know? Like
Yeah.
you love that. I mean, people love that stuff now where you throw back to the old movies that, the original films or whatever, you know?
Yep.
I wonder if they'll do a remake, if they'll ask if they'll film at the original house. That'd be pretty cool. 'Cause they're gonna have to do a reboot or something.
Eventually down the road.
Well, you know what happened with that movie, right?
Oh, which movie? The
So with Nightmare on Elm Street. So there was there's a what is it? There's a clause in a contract or something, but there's the rights of a film. It became a law that the rights of the film after 30 years would revert back to the 30 or 35 years, I want to say, something like that, but would
hmm.
revert back to the uh, original writer, right?
Yeah.
So the rights to Nightmare on Elm Street right now are in the hands of Wes Craven's estate,
Hmm.
you know. So his family and whatnot have the power, you know, to do whatever they want to do with it. And I think from what I've understood, they're working on developing something, you know. It'd
Hmm.
be cool if they did like a HBO Max or Paramount, or it would be HBO Max, I think, because that's New Line. Probably go with New Line again. Um, did you know that uh Warner Brothers owns New Line? I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
Because if you look up at whenever they show like stuff for New Line, it
Yeah.
actually says at the bottom a Time Warner Company. So I did not realize that Warner Brothers owns the rights to New Line and everything. So all the New Line properties are actually Warner Brothers, which would be HBO Max. So if they did an HBO Max Freddy mo show or movie or something, that'd be pretty cool. You
Yeah.
know, I'd be down with it. Especially if you liked Freddy's Nightmares, didn't you?
I like that. I like that show.
Yeah, I think doing something like that and bringing back Freddy as just a like a crypt keeper type, character, that'd be
Yeah,
fun.
that's on Tubi, right?
I think so. Let me look that up. I think it's on Tubi because you used to have copies of it, right? On like DVD, I think. Or did you not?
I didn't. I had copies of Friday the 13th, the series.
Oh, that was what it was. Yeah. No, Freddy's Nightmares is available on Tubi. So people can go check that out if they really want. I remember that because I grew up wanting to see all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies when I was a kid, but my parents would never let me watch them because, too scary or whatever. And
Mhm.
so I would see like Freddy all over the place because Freddy was such an iconic character. He had action figures and different things for that. I just thought that was crazy. Like for a villain, you know,
Yeah,
like that's just strange to me.
yeah,
But
and the marketing they had for him, like if you just saw some of the, it's nowadays it's kind of a little bit more age appropriate, but they have the NECA stuff, but the like if you look at some of the old toys that he used to have, I mean, it was just, it was like aisles of Toys R Us stuff, aisles of like Toys R Us stuff in Toys R Us devoted to like Freddy Krueger, and he was, people forget that he was like originally like what was a child molester or something,
yeah,
child killer.
right. Which I read something. Hold on, I read something really interesting about that because it was sort of such a weird scene when all the kids were um in the audience, you know. Um the television show appearance was inspired by a real encounter. According to Wes Craven, Robert England and I did an appearance together on public television in the San Francisco area. It was about whether this kind of movie was bad for children or not. There were parents in the audience and then kids. All the kids leapt to their feet and started chanting, Freddy, Freddy, Freddy. I remember looking at the show host and the parents, and they all looked horrified. So, yeah, I mean, he was a child molester or so, or,
Yeah.
kidnapper and all these things, and yet he's sort of glorified, you know? Like, I don't know. I used to sort of root for Freddy because I didn't like any of the
Yeah.
teenagers that he had to deal with.
You kind of had to, the other ones like Michael Myers and Jason, at least were kind of just, the movies were what they were, but Freddy was like the cultural icon.
Right. He was, which I mean, I don't know what that says about our culture, but I think it's more along the lines of people just enjoy somebody who's funny, you know, like with funny little one-liners and shit. Like you
Mhm.
think about Chucky, you know,
Yeah.
Chucky sort of had that sort of thing too. Ghostface ended up sort of going that route at times, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so it it's interesting to think like that we enjoy people who are just menacing and funny. If they're funny, being menacing, we like them, or whatever. I don't know. It's weird. Um, I I never had any of the like. I remember there was like books, like Nightmare on Elm Street books, like
Yep.
different stories and stuff that wasn't just an adaptation of the movies, but like was an actual continuing story. And I would love to see like I think they've got Freddy comics and stuff. I mean, I would love to see more of that stuff going and
Maybe I'm
happening.
pretty comic. I got a couple.
You got a Freddy comic?
I got a couple.
Cool. Um, do you have any Jason comics?
I'm trying to think. I can't really think. Nothing springs to mind on the Jason.
Nothing Springfields to mind.
Yep.
It's just like, nope, I'm not giving you props for that one. So yeah, I don't know. It was. I also Halloween never got that big, I don't think. I mean, did they have Halloween comics?
Um,
Not in the 80's, I don't think.
I'm trying to think if they did because I Nightmare on Elm Street, I know they did, but Friday the 13th,
Friday the 13th had books. I
yeah,
remember as a kid, I used to collect the books, and they were written by this guy who I became friends with on Facebook, and then whatever. I don't think we're friends on Facebook anymore. But the guy wrote it, and I remember them because they kind of freaked me out as a kid, like reading these stories because I live over by the woods, and it was so funny because I would be like looking out my window thinking Jason was there in the woods, waiting for me, you know. Um, that
the
was that. I think that's what scared me the most about Jason is the woods. And I don't think I've ever had a dream about Freddy, like a nightmare about Freddy, which is kind of sad. You'd think that like I would have had one, right? You know,
maybe tonight, maybe tonight,
maybe tonight I'll have one.
yeah,
I kind of hope
but
not now because I want to do it when it's like not expected, you know.
yeah,
But maybe I'll have one tonight. I don't know. I enjoyed rewatching this because I hadn't seen it in forever. And I remember I always sort of change it, like turn it off halfway off, because I saw it once all the way through, and then every other time I've watched it, I've only watched like half of it. So I think I really like the first half, you know, and I really like the meta stuff. But then after a while, once they get to the hospital, I think I turn it off, you know, and
hmm
stuff. Even though the hospital stuff was amazing, you know, like I love Jill's death, you know, where she's just
yeah,
like being she got Tina'd, just the way Tina got killed, being thrown up on the
feeling,
ceiling and stuff, you know. So they
yep,
really tried to bring back the original movie in a way, in a cool different way. And I like that, appreciated that because, I guess that was supposed to be the final chapter to Freddy, you know.
yep,
And it was the final chapter to Robert Englund's Freddy, which everybody was so mad when they cast somebody else as Freddy and not Robert Englund.
yeah.
I forgot who it was. I know it was
Jackie Earl Haley.
Jackie Earl Haley. That's right. Who like people know him, I think, from like Shawshank or something, and movies like that are just big, huge, whatever. But I don't really know him from much, and I don't think he did a good job as Freddy, to be honest.
He also did the didn't he wasn't he in the Saw movies?
I think so, probably. I have not seen those in forever, so I can't remember.
I've never seen a Saw movie.
You never seen? Oh man, we gotta watch the Saw movie sometime. At least the first one is amazing. First one blows everything else out of the water. The rest after that is just the Saw
Yeah.
franchise. It's another movie. But I really loved the first Saw movie, which I didn't think I would because at that time I thought torture porn was sort of like not obviously not my thing, but uh it's a little more than that, the first one. The rest of them are just I want to quote fucking Scream, where the first one was great, but the rest sucked.
Yeah.
And they didn't suck, they just weren't as good. Um and I don't agree with Kevin Williamson's assessment of that. I don't know if like he really feels that way necessarily about the I'd love to Ch Kevin Williamson, chat me up. I'd love to interview you, and I'll ask you if you really feel like the rest of the uh Nightmare on Elm Street suck, or you just wrote that for Drew Barrymore's character to say.
Yeah.
Um, by the way, did you know like uh what is it? Wes Craven was not going to put that line in there because he felt like it was sort of making him look good, because
Uh-huh.
he was the one who directed the first movie. And then Kevin Williamson remind him he's also the one who did, the New Nightmare, which also counts as the ones that suck. So he's allowed to put that in there, keep that in there and everything. But yeah, once again, Scream was very meta, you know. So I don't know if that's just where people's minds were at that point, or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's where Chris Wes Craven liked, kind of poking fun at the genre. Um, I don't know. So to go back, I dug a lot of stuff with Miko uh what was the kid's name? I want to say it was Tyler, but it's Dylan, right?
Dylan.
Dylan. So all the stuff with Dylan was fantastic because he had to be creepy. He had to become Freddy at some points, you know?
Yeah, there were little parts where he was just channeling Freddy.
Yeah. And he would go, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you, bitch. And I'm like, oh God, like getting this kid to do these creepy things. And by the way, he's the kid in Kindergarten Cop that says, uh, you know, uh, boys have a penis and girls have a vagina. So it's like the same kid who does that in Kindergarten Cop is the one who's going there saying all these goofy Freddy shit, you know. I he's had a pretty great career. I hope he gets back out there and does more horror or something at some point. Be
Yeah,
cool to see him back in the
that'd be nice.
yeah. Um, Heather Langenkamp, like it's hilarious that um the limo driver picks her up, right? And
Hmm.
he's like so excited it's her because of, I guess, Nightmare on Elm Street. But like she'd also been on a TV show that was a pretty big hit. I think it was a hit. I loved it, called Just the Ten of Us. Do you remember that?
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, she was one of the 10. Which was interesting because she was with another. I gotta rewatch that. I think it's probably on YouTube. I think she was with another um what is it? Another Nightmare on Elm Street person in that show. Um oh, Sid Haig had a part in that. Yes, he had a cameo.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, Brooke Thies. Brooke Thies, who was
Yeah,
in
I remember her.
Nightmare on Street 4.
I remember Brooke.
Yeah. So it was really cool. Like those two were Nightmare on Elm Street girls who also happen to be in a sitcom together. It
Yeah,
was
I
just,
didn't realize.
well,
I
God,
didn't realize I was figuring it out, but Heather was only 30 when she made this movie.
when she made this one, yeah. She was
Yeah.
young when she did. Yeah, because that would make sense because she was like 20 when she made the first one, and that was 10 years before. So
Yeah.
yeah. Wow. Um, because they usually have people in their early to mid 20s playing high school kids, not sometimes late 20s or 30-year-olds playing high school kids, but you know,
Yeah.
um that's usually more of a joke. They usually just try to find somebody who's of age to play parts where they're supposed to be underage.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't want to have to have the limitations on the hours they could work and all that stuff.
Exactly, which makes total sense, to be honest. Um, but also they have to ask these kids to do things, like um, kiss or pretend to have sex or whatever,
Yeah,
you know.
they're funny because they hire the older actors to play the teenagers to do stuff that teenagers would be doing, but they can't have the teenagers doing those things.
Right. Well, right. Because,
It's like a di-
because
it's like a
teenagers do those things, but
yeah,
they're not supposed to, we're not supposed to watch them do that. And even like to think about it, how creepy is it to watch, movies where the kids are supposed to be in high school and having sex? you know?
Yeah.
That like feels very pedophilia like, you know? Like I
Yeah.
really looking back at this now when I was a kid or a teenager, that was fine to watch, right?
Hmm.
But now looking at it, I'm like, ew, it's kind of creepy. You know, like, do I want to see like this 16-year-old girl lose her virginity? You know, even though it's a 30-year-old girl, maybe, playing it, like that's just, I don't know, that just gets really weird. I don't like it, you know, but
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the way it is. But like I said, like they were, in their 20s or so, when they made Nightmare on Elm Street #1. And Johnny Depp, I think, it was like a rock star at that time. That's like what he wanted to do was be a rock star. He didn't want to be an actor and
Yeah.
stuff. So, I mean, he should have got back in. He should go back out and do some more touring and stuff. I think he does. I think he still does, if I'm correct. You know,
Who is that?
Johnny Depp.
Oh, yeah. He tours.
Yeah. So there you go. But yeah, anyway, to go back to Nightmare, the a new Nightmare. What do you think of the title? Do you like it?
Now, did it go like straight New Nightmare or Wes Craven's New Nightmare?
So everybody always calls it Wes Craven's New Nightmare, but when you look it up on like IMDb and other places, it's just New Nightmare. So I'm wondering if they just take off the Wes Cravens, just to, I don't know, separate it or something. I don't
There
know.
was when I was listening to the commentary, Wes was talking about something at the end about like the writer and because he was talking about like the writing credit and acting and the director credit and how they were. It's like you had to show one in front of the other or something like that, and it was like some kind of Directors Guild brouhaha. And so,
Probably.
but I don't know. New Nightmare.
You're trying to think if you like it or not.
Maybe Nightmare Revisited.
I think that was a title for like a documentary or something, you know. Um,
Mhm.
I mean that's a cool name, but I think I honestly I don't mind a new Nightmare because it is basically supposed to be Wes Craven's actual new Nightmare, that he
Yeah,
had. And I'm wondering if that was like I think I mentioned this earlier, but I wonder if that's actually true, you know? Like I wonder if he
yeah.
was having a nightmare and he was like, this would make a great, see if there's any
Well,
trivia on that.
even the title is meta. New Nightmare, Wes Craven's new Nightmare. He's got a new nightmare that he has to get down on paper.
Do you think the porn was called a nude nightmare?
The nude nightmare.
Wes Wes Boner's uh nude nightmare.
Nude nightmare.
Yeah. I think that's the porn title. I'd watch that.
Yeah,
Freddy porn, you know.
there is a Freddy porn out there.
I'm not surprised, man. Freddy porn. There was rip-offs all over the place after Freddy. India and like Brazil and all these different places had like Nightmare on Elm Street rip-offs. And
I think I think an Indian version would actually work really well because there's like Indian sensibilities very they have a lot of stuff with like monsters and dreams and
well,
you know
apparently it wasn't very good. I saw a whole video on all the different rip-offs and they show these different ones. And I think the one from India was terrible. If I'm correct. But I mean maybe that they were being harsh on it. I don't know. I'd have to watch that. If I can ever find it someday, we'll watch it together, you know.
yeah.
Um, but let's see. Let me look at the trivia real quick for this. Um, let's see. In duh, 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 um, The basic premise of the film, Freddy invading the real world and haunting the actors and crew responsible for Nightmare on Elm Street, was originally intended to be used for a Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, inspired by the movie Return to Horror High. But the
Hmm.
idea was rejected at the studio at the time. I never saw Return to Horror High, I don't think. Did I?
I never saw it.
Maybe I did. Maybe that was the movie where is that Cemetery High? I don't know. Um, the film has no opening titles to blur the illusion of whether it's a film, a documentary, or something else altogether. So that was interesting. I thought about that when I saw it. I was like, oh wow, they go straight into the movie, you know, just like New Line Cinema Presents, and then it just goes into the movie. It doesn't even say a new nightmare, I don't think, on it. I think it says it at the end. Um, let's see. Wes Craven's daughter, Jessica Craven, appears as a nurse. She's probably the
Yep.
cute nurse. There's that cute little nurse that didn't get the that didn't get like punched or didn't, that ran away basically because she was scared of Jill.
Jamie.
I think it was Jill.
Jill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Jill was threatening to stab her with the needle,
Was that
and
her?
yeah,
Nice.
and then just threatened to stab her, and she yelled basically boo, and she ran away.
Interesting. The working title for this film was A Nightmare on Elm Street 7, The Ascension. However, producer Robert Shea felt he didn't want the audience to see this as another tired sequel to the series and wanted to stand on its own feet. So much so, the trailers and TV spots never showed Freddy's face on screen until after its release. Um, but
Well,
that's,
that's smart. You want a teaser. You don't want to. You
oh
know.
man, everything, all trailers, all they do now is just show the whole movie, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's no surprise, there's no fun, right? And I don't know why I still watch them, like I could watch the whole fucking movie sometimes. I like if somebody looked at the new what Shazam trailer and somebody actually like commented, I think I just saw the whole movie, you
Yeah.
know? And I was like, so when I was watching, I was like, damn, I feel like I did too. Like they probably did just show us the whole movie, Cliff
Yep.
notes. And that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to kind of tease people, get them to want to come, but not, you know, basically show them the whole movie.
You know what I used to I a lot of my DVDs have on the extras. They have the radio spots that they had back in the day. I love those.
Really? I,
Yeah, I
uh,
love like I know Phantasm had them, Halloween, like any of the a lot of those old
the
movies were
70s ones, yeah,
70s and
and early
80s,
80s.
and just even going throughout the 80s. They would have because radio was still a big driver for hey, come down to the you get the fast talking DJ. He was like, hey, Robbie, okay, come on down to the local Cineplex for Halloween, and then
Yeah, that's true.
he cue the the um the radio ad, and
Yeah, I'll have to listen to some. I know I probably got some on my, because I got all those Arrow and Vinegar Syndrome and all those
yeah,
different companies and stuff. And I bet they love to put that shit on there because, the whole idea of doing those Blu-rays, like boutique Blu-rays, is to pack them up with as much extras as you possibly can.
yeah.
Um, for Halloween and for like Texas Chainsaw, or a lot of them are like Scream Factory puts them out, and whatnot. And those guys love like extras like that. Um, there's some other stuff. Let's see. But I want to go back to the Ascension. Yeah, I do like the new Nightmare title as opposed to calling it A Nightmare on Elm Street, because not until like the end do we see in Elm Street? Like
Yeah.
this whole movie takes place in Hollywood, you know,
Yep.
or whatever. This doesn't even take place um in Elm Street. So calling it Nightmare on Elm Street 7 is kind of sort of pointless in a way, in my opinion. Plus, at that point or another was when New Line Cinema and other companies were starting to call him by the name of the character, right? Or something, you know?
Yeah.
So it would have been like Freddy's, Ascension or something, because Freddy's Dead was the last one that they had done. And then Jason Goes to Hell, you know? So they
Yep.
really liked calling everything by the character's name, which you've seen Jason Goes to Hell, right?
Of course.
At the end of it with the Freddy's hand coming up, and
Freddy's
I
claw coming down. Yep.
I remember seeing that because I was up in Massachusetts visiting a friend of mine, and I was a kid or whatever, and it was on USA, the USA network,
Yeah.
and I guess it was probably a Friday. It was probably Friday the 13th or whatever, and they had Jason Goes to Hell, and Jason's hand or Freddy's hand comes up and grabs it at the end, and I
Yep.
just lost my shit there. I was like, ah!
Yeah,
Like
that's one of those things where people were just like, "Oh my God."
because like other people had probably wanted Jason and Freddy to get together. I had never thought of that as a kid, right? I never thought
Yeah.
that was a thing, that would be even possible, you know? So I never watched like the Frankenstein movies as a kid. I was never into them. I'm into them now, but as a
Mhm.
kid I was never into seeing Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, or, or meets Dracula or
The
whatever.
one that everyone talks about, and I know Mick Garris is a huge fan of it, is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Yes, I've seen that one. I've seen the Wolfman one. I've seen Abbott and Costello meet the Wolfman, and or was it meets Frankenstein and the Wolfman was in it? I don't remember. Maybe it was. I don't think it was the Wolfman. So it was Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. And I think the Wolfman shows up, and they're just like laughing at him because he's the Wolfman, or something like that. Like he
Yeah.
keeps talking about how he's gonna change, and they're like, all right, well, whatever. Um, but yeah, I liked Abbott and Costello. Um, I need to watch more of their movies and stuff. I need to watch the Marcho or Groucho Marx movies. You
We
know,
could watch that we could watch that next time. Or
yeah, because what my dad was recommending, like the At the Circus, or I think, or something like that, or
there's Duck Soup is another one.
yeah,
That's one of the more.
yeah, that's the one my dad and mom used to have on like Betamax. Duck Soup. I remember that shit. Because I was like, Duck Soup. Like, why would anyone want to watch a movie called Duck Soup? That just sounds terrible. As a kid, that's what I thought, and I never wanted to watch it, you know?
Yeah.
Um, there was that, and they had Mate One, and I was like, what is this? My parents don't even remember ever watching that movie.
Yeah.
Like, you used to have it. Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys ever watched it, but you used to have it. I know that because remember that title, because I was like, what the hell is this? Thing. So we're about to wrap up on this discussion, but was there anything that we forgot to mention that was pretty cool with this movie?
Um,
I did like the final battle, you know, where she kind of, like, my favorite part is where she goes under the covers to go to the place. And I thought
yeah.
that was pretty neat, you know. They like made basically a tunnel out of the blanket. And I was like,
That that was really cool. The weird thing was the whole final um thing at the end. Maybe because I was watching it on with commentary, and Wes was pointing out, the set and everything, but it looked. And I know that they're trying to sort of have the same furnace thing as the first movie, but it just didn't. play to me. It didn't play. Um, it just looked like a set.
Right.
It didn't look like
I kind of got that feeling too when I was watching it. Like
you know.
it didn't feel like a world, you know?
Yeah, it kind of felt like, okay, this is just kind of like they just made up this like sound stage to look like Freddy's whatever, Freddy's
You know,
lair.
nowadays it's going to be green screen, it's going to be all CGI, you know?
Yeah.
But that could be kind of cool because you could do a lot more stuff with a CGI world, you
Well,
know?
Wes was talking in the commentary how some of the scenes in the movie were CGI. You
Nice.
know, and just some of like the little ones where I guess where she's falling down into the world or something, and then the little things here and there. But this it was early CGI, so
Well, it's kind of funny because if you think about it, it was not just, it was Hansel and Gretel, you know, which I never thought of like that, in a way, Freddy always was sort of Hansel and Gretel, you
yeah,
know, and everything. Because when she was reading Hansel and Gretel to Dylan and everything, and he got creepy at times, man. It was so annoying. He was like, quoting the book and stuff to her and everything. I'm like, this isn't normal, Heather. You shouldn't, like, you should be freaked out more than she was, Like
yeah,
he was saying things that was just strange, you know, and she was kind of just going with it, I guess.
yep,
But anyway, obviously the whole bit is supposed to be the breadcrumbs, which I guess were pills, you know,
pills, yeah.
sleeping pills or whatever. And I
Even
was like, you're
Alice.
taking way too many sleeping pills.
Well, it's also like the whole Alice in Wonderland thing.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, because when she falls through
One pill makes you taller, and one pill makes you
she,
something
but
like
nothing,
Jefferson's
they didn't
Starship
do
song.
anything like that, which would have been cool, you know, made her taller and could fight, whatever. That would have been neat. Um,
Yeah,
Now Freddy did like have like his hand come up and do the extension thing, which was from the original movie,
yep,
and everything, which I thought was a cool throwback. Because if you watch like the second or even the third, which was written by Wes, like the story was, you know, came up by him, and I think he helped write it with Frank Darabont. He didn't direct it, I don't think. Like Chuck Russell
with
directed
the
the
yeah
third one.
I think Chuck Russell directed it.
Yeah. The guy did The Mask, which,
Did the Blob too? I think didn't or no,
yeah,
Frank Darabont did the
yeah.
Blob.
Oh my God, those guys are amazing. Yeah, he did Nightmare on Elm Street 3, but like Wes Craven wrote like the story and stuff and came back to help with that. And I think that was honestly, I think that's because the first one was such a big hit that they made the second one and it did not do very well. And
Yeah,
then it became like known as like the gay Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And then,
number two. Yeah,
yeah, number two. And then the third one, they brought Wes back because they're like, we need to get back on track, and he brought back Heather, or Nancy, and then, and I think John Saxon's even in that one too, if I'm correct. Um, and then the fourth and fifth one were, I think Brian Helgeland did the fourth one. Who I love Brian Helgeland. What has that dude been up to? I wonder. Um,
I know
he,
one of them. I think five. I think Rennie Harlan did.
yeah, part four was part four Rennie Harlan? Or was part five? Let me see. Four was Rennie Harlan with Brian Helgeland as the writer. Part five was Stephen Hopkins,
Okay.
um, who did like Predator 2 and The Dark Tower, unfortunately. Poor guy. He hasn't really had that. He's.
Predator 2 was a good movie. I like that.
And did we watch that movie together? I want to say we did.
Yeah, we
Um,
probably did.
because I watched it for the first time. I think it was with you, and then I was blown out of the water because, I- sequels are generally worse than the first one.
Yeah,
It's just harder to make a really good sequel that like stacks up. But that one was just fun. You know.
it
Um.
really is. And the thing that I really liked about Predator 2 also, it had a lot of characters, but they managed them well.
Hmm.
Everyone got kind of like an appropriate amount of screen time. Of course, Danny Glover, but Ruben Blades, Bill Paxton, Maria Conchita Alonso, just all these people. And they got the appropriate amount of screen time. And it was just and I think I think Predator works better where it's not some like super soldiers thing, but just people that I think I think the whole thing, the sci-fi and horror, works better if it's just normal people put into an abnormal situation,
I agree.
and they don't have. I think that's where they missed the boat in the Predator movie that Shane Black did. I think it would have been cool if they had just had the scientists against the predator. If all those scientists had developed all these technologies to fight the predator, and you know, they instead of like the standard military guys.
Where were you when Shane Black was writing it? And you could have told him that. I think you should keep the scientists. Get rid of get rid
Well,
of
like too, like because they had a Jake Busey on there who, they could have easily done something more with him in that
Yeah.
movie.
I love Jake Busey. Honestly, I've met him a couple times. He's really nice.
Oh yeah,
Um, you met him, right?
yeah.
Yeah, he's a really cool dude. Um, so anyway, I think that about wraps it up. Did we cover everything, do you think?
I think so. It was a good movie, but it wasn't quite as memorable as I remember.
It's not as memorable as you remember.
Yeah.
Like,
But I can also definitely see where he got his some of his early ideas for Scream. Like there's a lot of stuff involving like the phone in that, and even if it'd be interesting to look at like the the way that the living room is set up in Scream versus this one, because I wouldn't be surprised if it's sort of similar.
yeah. And it was the same production team too. So like a lot of the people um which is funny because it wasn't New Line that did Scream. It was Miramax,
Yeah.
and Weinstein and stuff. So interesting about that, but I don't know. I love I hold Scream like it's one of my favorite movies,
Yeah.
So it's a movie that got me back into horror films and stuff, as a
Yeah.
kid. And
Mhm.
I think it did that for a lot of people. And I think it's because movies like this did okay. I'm gonna real quick look at I want to see what the box office was, like what the budget was and how well it did in the box office. Because I think it did okay, but all right. Yeah, so its budget was $8 million, and that was 8 million in 94. Um,
Yeah.
and then opening weekend it made 6,600,000. Oh wow. So it made 6,666 or 667, but still the first three letters the numbers are 666.
Yeah.
Uh, damn. But 6,667,118. It grossed 18,090,181, and the
Wait,
worldwide gross was like 19 million.
and which movie is this?
This is New Nightmare.
Okay. It's not. I mean, it maybe may have made a little bit of money. Nothing. But I wonder how much it made on like like the like overseas rights and all that stuff.
I wonder too.
Rebroadcast.
Let me see how much Scream made. Um, Scream made. All right, Scream had a budget of 14 million and made 103 million 46,663 grossed. The worldwide gross is 173 million. So yeah, that was such a success that they greenlit the sequel and went right into the sequel as fast as they could, which I think is sort of a mistake. You should not ever go that quickly into a sequel, you know? Like
Yeah.
be like Star Wars and just take like 2 or 3 years, you know?
Yeah,
Because
it's kind of like marriages. You don't want to do the quickie Vegas marriage.
right, you want a long drawn out engagement that, ends up in a very good wedding, reception,
Yeah.
and everything. But whatever. You know? Some people like the quickie Vegas route. I don't know. Not me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed this movie a lot. I didn't find it, I mean, I didn't really remember much except I remember the opening scene and I remember Freddie coming out of for the talk show. Those are the
Yep.
only things I really remembered from the movie. And now I'm like, I'll probably remember a lot more of this, especially I'll remember the freeway scene because that, to me now,
Yeah.
that just kind of blew me away.
Yeah.
Just because it had to be hard to just coordinate all these cars and make sure they never hit anybody and except for
Well,
Nancy or
it was
Heather.
well, yeah. What Wes was talking about how it was like a combination of like practical, like the regular things, and then there was the
A little CGI probably.
well, it was they had like a screen behind him that they were projecting like cars coming.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
it looked like he was in the middle of a highway.
Perfect. Well, so everybody, let us know what you guys think of a new Nightmare. Did you guys enjoy it? Do you guys like that name? Do you not like that name? I like it. I think it works for the movie. It's sort of very meta once again.
Yep.
And tell us what you guys think. Also check out sickflickproductions.com. There's also indiefilmcafe.reviews, indiefilmcafe.podbean.com, and if you can spare a buck, do patreon.com/, indiefilmcafe. So until then, everybody, we want to say thank you guys for checking us out and let us know what you guys think. I'll be back next month with a brand new episode of 90's horror films, and I have no idea what we're doing yet. So don't don't even ask. All right. Well, thank you so much, Vittorio, and I'll definitely have you back on soon.
You're welcome. Pleasant dreams, everyone.
Pleasant dreams. Bye, everybody.